Hey now, TikTok talking to you about sports watches of the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. And today, submitted for your approval, is an absolute gem from Breitling, the Unitime reference 2610 from 1961. Now, this watch, I think it's so overlooked by collectors, probably because it's in the shadow of its more famous cousin, the Navitimer 806, and the Super Ocean. Those watches sort of kind of take all the oxygen out of the room when you're speaking about Breitling, and so the poor Unitimer just gets lost in that conversation. But this was Breitling's answer to the Rolex GMT. Breitling had nothing in that market. They had been known for their aviation chronographs. In the 1950s, they had kind of gotten into the diving watches with the reference 1002, which has become iconic in its own right now. But they had nothing to compete with that second time zone GMT that Rolex had just sort of gotten so right in the 1950s. So what Breitling did was they did a different take on it. Instead of adding that fourth pointer hand that most other companies had done to create a GMT, Breitling used an inner rotating dial that's actually part of the movement's rotation that rotates in a 24-hour scale opposite or counterclockwise from the hand motion. So as you can see right now the watch is set for 10 after 8 p.m. So if you look up at the 12 position, you can see it says 2000, which is military time for 8 p.m. Hands telling you it's 10 after. Now let's say, and as you can see, that inner rotating bezel rotates opposite the hands. So now it's let's say 10 after 9, 2100, and you wanted to add, let's say, 6 hours to this time to find out what it is in let's say Europe. So if you notice, the outer bezel has the hours you're going to either add or subtract. If you rotate it clockwise, you're adding hours. If you rotate it counterclockwise, you're subtracting hours. So we're going to add 6 hours to this. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now 6 hours I've added. And as you can see, the pointer is now pointing to 3 a.m. So in that second time zone, it's 3 a.m. Simple as can be. And as those hands move again, that inner bezel is going to rotate, keeping constantly what that second time zone is. And I just think that's so cool. I love that it moves with the movement. Now there are other watches with inner rotating bezels. The compressor comes to mind, but that's a timing bezel. It's set manually by you and it's static. This one actually moves, and it kind of brings the watch alive. And I just love that dial. I love that the roulette look to that inner bezel. The hands, if you notice, they're painted black, so they almost disappear into the black dial with just the tips with the illumination on them. When this watch was new, those hands must have just been absolutely stunning, the way they sort of float almost on that black dial. You have the bezel itself is a thin Bakelite bezel. There are, I've seen them in the field in steel. I'm not sure if that was contemporaneous with this model or a later one. For those of you who collect, no, Bakelite does not hold up well to time. So Breitling may have switched during the run of the watch, but I have no proof of that. But you will see them in both. It's very hard to find the Bakelite bezel in any kind of condition. The date window is located at the 6th position, which again makes it a little more unusual. Not horribly. There's many out there with that, but it gives it a little something different. It's got the red indicators, which is very sort of indicative of the time. You'll see that on some of the watches like the Radow, Captain Cook of this period. They had that red font for the numbers. There is no Cyclops window, which I prefer. Gives the watch a cleaner look. This watch measures in at 37.5 inches, which is pretty par for this time period. It fits nicely on my wrist, which is a little bit smaller. It's got an 18 millimeter lug to width, which gives it a very nice look. It's powered by a 711 Felsa caliber movement, which is a modified of their 692. The modification, I believe, is that inner rotating bezel. And it's just it's a watch if you're a collector and you're looking to do something a little bit different from this time period. I can't recommend it enough. It's still very affordable. I have also seen them out there with that inner bezel. Instead of being black and white, I've seen it in the red and black, sort of red for daytime and black for nighttime configuration that you see on the Anacar Sherpas. I've seen that configuration as well. Again, I don't know whether that was a later version, contemporaneous with this version, but this particular one dates from 1965, according to the serial numbers, so it's about the middle of the run. So again, just to sum up, fantastic watch. Something you really should consider for your collection if you're a collector of sports watches of this period. And that's it for this session. So TikTok talking at you. Catch me next time. I'm going to be putting more watches from my collection up there, try to give you the information that I have gathered from scouring the internet. Unfortunately, a lot of these watches, there's just not a lot of information easily attainable, and I really wanted, with these videos, sort of give you the benefit of the legwork that I've done and introduce you to maybe something that just wasn't on your radar. So until next time, be safe out there, and we'll talk watches again soon.